You say a word over and over until it loses meaning. You walk into your own kitchen and it feels like you've never seen it before. Someone close to you calls your name, but for a second, you don't recognize it. It's not amnesia. It's not confusion. You know you've been here before, but it all feels completely unfamiliar. That's Jamais Vu. Often described as the opposite of déjà vu, Jamais Vu is a lesser known but equally fascinating psychological glitch. A moment where the familiar suddenly feels foreign. In this video, we're going to break down what Jamais Vu is, what causes it, how it shows up in life and media, and what it reveals about the way memory and recognition actually work. Welcome to Concept Explained, Jamais Vu. What is Jamais Vu? Jamais Vu is French for never seen. It's the eerie sensation of encountering something you logically know, but that feels completely unfamiliar. Unlike déjà vu, where a new experience feels strangely familiar, Jamais Vu is the reverse. You're in a known situation, your home, your daily routine, your handwriting, but it suddenly feels alien, like you're seeing it for the first time. The knowledge is there, you know it, but emotionally, it feels like it doesn't belong to you. It's not memory loss. You're fully aware of what the thing is, you can name it, define it, interact with it. But the feeling of recognition disappears. For a moment, the connection between familiarity and meaning comes undone. It's strange. It's disorienting. And for a brief moment, the world around you becomes unfamiliar territory. Jamais Vu is elusive, fleeting, and difficult to study, but people who experience it tend to describe it in strikingly similar terms. One common trigger is repetition. Repeating a word over and over, like door or paper, can make the word start to feel unfamiliar. It sounds like gibberish. It loses its meaning. This is called semantic satiation, and it's one of the most basic forms of Jamais Vu. Another trigger is fatigue or cognitive overload. When the brain is overwhelmed, tired, or distracted, it can fail to process something familiar in the usual way. That disruption breaks the feeling of recognition, even if you still know what you're looking at. Some people experience Jamais Vu during moments of high stress or dissociation, especially in cases of anxiety or depersonalization. The mind pulls away from automatic recognition, and the everyday starts to feel surreal. In rarer cases, Jamais Vu is linked to neurological conditions such as temporal lobe epilepsy or aphasia, where the brain's recognition and language centers become temporarily scrambled. Most of the time, though, it's harmless, a momentary fracture in how we process familiarity. In everyday life, Jamais Vu often slips by unnoticed. You might blink and shake it off, chalking it up to stress, distraction, or being in a weird mood. But it also finds its way into art and media, usually not by name, but by feel. The sensation of something being wrong with the familiar shows up in stories where identity is uncertain, or where characters question their surroundings. Take films like Memento, where a man's memory loss causes his entire world to feel foreign, even his own notes and tattoos. Or The Truman Show, where everything looks normal, but the main character slowly senses that none of it feels real. These aren't direct portrayals of Jamais Vu, but they mirror its core effect: a breakdown in emotional recognition of the familiar. In literature, authors like Franz Kafka or Haruki Murakami often create environments that feel mundane on the surface, but emotionally dislocated, making the reader feel like something is off, even when nothing dramatic is happening. On the internet, Jamais Vu pops up in videos or liminal edits where commonplaces like schools, hospitals, or bedrooms are presented in distorted ways. The viewer knows what they're looking at, but it doesn't feel right. It's the same concept at work: the known made alien. So what's actually happening during Jamais Vu? The dominant theory is that it's a recognition failure in the brain's memory perception systems. You know what you're seeing, but your brain fails to feel like it's familiar. Some researchers describe this as a temporary disconnect between semantic memory, facts and knowledge, and emotional recognition. Another theory is neurological fatigue. When you process something too quickly or repetitively, the neural circuits involved get overwhelmed. The brain starts to tune out, like static on a channel you've watched for too long. The result is emotional detachment from something you otherwise understand. There are also more abstract interpretations. Some view Jamais Vu as a brief crack in the illusion of normalcy, a moment when the automation of daily life breaks down and we see the world as it really is: strange, fragile, surreal. It's not always pleasant, but it's revealing. It reminds us that our experience of the world is largely built on assumptions, and when those assumptions falter, even the most ordinary thing can become uncanny. Jamais Vu might be less discussed than déjà vu, but it touches on some big ideas about how we construct identity, how we move through routine, and how much of life we experience on autopilot. When that autopilot slips, when the familiar becomes unfamiliar, it creates space for questions. Who am I? Where am I? What is this, really? For creatives, that's fertile ground. Horror games, psychological thrillers, and surreal films all pull from that feeling, using disconnection as a tool to unnerve, to intrigue, or to reveal hidden truths. The most terrifying stories often aren't about monsters. They're about the familiar becoming foreign. And philosophically, Jamais Vu points to the fragility of recognition. It shows how even basic experiences like language, space, or selfhood can be disrupted. We assume that knowing is enough, but Jamais Vu shows us that feeling known is just as important. Jamais Vu is one of those rare, disorienting phenomena that remind us how much we take for granted. It turns the everyday into the surreal, not through fantasy, but through a momentary failure of memory and recognition. Whether it happens while staring at your own handwriting or walking into your bedroom, it breaks the illusion of familiarity and reminds you that even the known world can feel like a stranger. So if you ever catch yourself looking at something familiar and wondering, why does this feel so weird? You're not alone. Stay curious. And as always, thanks for watching.